Hi, this is Andrew from the Auto Club. For all of those out there that own your bitchin' Camaro and you end up needing to rebuild the door hinges, which is a very common problem because they have the most massive doors that eat hinge bushings like crazy, I'm going to show you how to do that. This is off a '79 Camaro, and there's a couple different components I need to rebuild on this. One is these rollers, typically that bushing gets worn out on them. In the case of this one, it's not. But then also, these are your main door pin hinge bushings, and those are going to be replaced. So, to do that, we're going to have to get this thing disassembled. Now, this one's actually completely worn out and unusable because somebody didn't replace that bushing soon enough, so it ended up opening up that hole inside there too much that you can't put a new bushing in. So I'm going to use this as my donor hinge. I've already had one that I've taken apart and sandblasted. So now I'm going to show you how to take it apart. The first thing you're going to have to deal with here is you got this spring. That's going to cause you some problems. And then also when they install these, they stamp over the edges of the pin. And so you can't pound that out until you grind that off. Typically the same thing will be done on the main hinge pin. But on this one you can see it's been replaced, so normally you'd have to grind that off also. So I'm just going to clamp it in the vise and then use this cutoff wheel just to remove that little bit of metal around there so I can pound this out. Alright, I finished grinding on the pin. You can see where I've removed where it's been stamped over. So now I just need to break this pin free. And all I want to do is just break it free to help get it unseated. And there you can see it started to move down. So one thing you're going to want to note is look at the direction this pin is indexed with the wheel sitting away from the detents, because when you put it back in you're going to have to make sure and put it back in that way. So now what I need to do is, now that I've broken it free, I need to compress this spring so that this pin can come out. To do that, I'm just going to use the vise. I'll set it in there and just clamp it down a little bit. That'll make that pin clear the detents, and then you're just going to have to pound the pin out. Okay, now you can see I've gotten my pin out, and I need that bushing because I couldn't find a source for these bushings. If you happen to know an exact part number of where to get one of those, then feel free to post it as a comment. So I'm going to transfer this bushing over to this pin, so I need to push this pin out now. So this is going to release the spring. So now we can remove all that. And there you're partially disassembled. Now we're at the same point as the one that I have blasted and gotten ready for final disassembly. So to take this pin out, I'm just going to set this guy in the vise, clamp down nice and tight on it, and use a punch to just pound that.
So, so that's what happens when you pound on the parts and then they go flying underneath of the bench.
Okay.
Like a Mexican jumping bean.
Now you can see I have this bushing here that I have access to, so I can either pound it out of this wheel and transfer it over to the other one, or I could just use this wheel, which is what I'm going to do. Your other option, this is what I had to do on my other hinge since its bushing was completely missing and I didn't have one to put in there, was I had a Dorman bushing kit, and I found a bushing that reasonably worked well for it. I ended up having to file these little knurls off to get it to fit in there, but then I pushed that in and that worked just fine. That's another option. Alright, So now that I'm done with that pin, the next thing is to take this pin out and then put some new bushings in. Then we can start working towards reassembling our entire set here. So to do that, here you can see on this one, this pin has never been removed before and it has its little crimps. I need to grind those off. There you can see I've ground those off, and this should just tap right out. Like so. Looks like the bottom's a little bit sticky. I'm going to tap that out. And there we go. Now it's free. So the key thing to note here is your orientation. Nothing will piss you off more than if you take this out, put your new bushings in, and then reinstall it like that. Then you're really going to hate yourself. So make sure to note which way you have it oriented. So you can see this little slot. It's on top with how this is clamped in the vise. That's the way I'll remember to put it back together. So now you can see there's a little bit of the old bushings remnants left in there. So I need to knock those out. Alright, this is one of my favorite things that I love in automotive repair. Alright, here's the kit I got. This is a Dorman part number 38375, a bushing kit that was sent to me for a 79 Camaro hinge. That comes with two bushings that are thin walled, you'll see. That's great for the top. You can see it doesn't just push right in. It's a nice tight fit, but you go to the bottom and you can see how nice and loose that is. Luckily for me, I had the other style of Dorman kit, which just has a random assortment of bushings, part number 38374. And that one, you can see, has an extra thick guy in there. That fits that. And it also happens to fit my pin. So that's what I'm going to be installing. Note that if you're going to be doing this project. So for the top one, I'm just going to tap it in. That's going to be a little bit tight, so we're going to use the vise. And just carefully push it in there. These things will break quite easily. So you can see that pushed in till it's flush. There's still a little gap there. So I'll just set that on the vise. Give it a light little tap, and there you can see it's all the way in. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom. We'll just get it started, put it in the vise, just take it till it seats flush, and tap it the rest of the way in. Alright, now I can reassemble that with this, which you'll remember I had this clamped in the vise like this, and I had this slot up. So now, if I go to put this back in, there's one problem. Notice how it's catching? And also, there's no splines on this side. I'd be putting that in upside down. On the bottom, there's a set of splines. You'll see on the bottom of this, there's a set of splines. So the pin goes up through the bottom. But I have some burrs left on this pin from grinding. Those, when I pound them through these bushings, they're going to take a gouge out of it, and that just decreases the life of them. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to take and grind that little burr off. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, and we're going to set this right in place. And should be able to pretty much just push the pin close to up through it. Might take a little bit of tapping. Okay, let's just go ahead and note this. Alright, we can see here that this is for the detent spring. This is where it goes through, which puts the roller right on this side. This is assembled correctly. Now we can go ahead and seat that pin. Okay, looks like that's all the way down. No play in there. So, there's set one done. Now we need to go back to our detent roller. I need to take the pin out of this one the same way I did the other one. Okay, I have my pin out. We're going to reinstall our roller. We might give that a little shot of brake cleaner and clean it up a little bit. Goes right on top there. Then we just pound this right back in. Okay, now that I have that done, I need to reinstall this into the hinge. Here's where it gets slightly tricky, because you got to be sure and put your spring in before you put your detent in, or you're gonna, well, kind of cock block yourself. So, see, if you set that in there, then you're gonna have a little bit of trouble trying to get that spring in place. So what I want to do is go ahead and clamp this back in the vise with the spring. And make sure that I orient it such that I can push my pin back in. Okay, now I have my hinge oriented correctly in the vise, and you'll notice that once you squeeze that, you'll get enough room to squeeze this by that little detent arm. And you want to make sure and orient it so that this is facing away from that arm. Looks like this has some kind of bulges and burrs on it. I think I'm going to grind those off also to make installation easier. Okay, there you go. Now you can see that just goes right in there and doesn't fight you at all. Get it lined up with the top. And then I'm just going to get it started a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and release the vise. And now you can see the spring is putting tension against this detent arm, up against that. As soon as I pound this down, then it's going to pop right onto that roller. Give this a few taps and see if we can just set it into place. Looks like that's all the way in. We just need to pop this up like that. Now, everything on this has been rebuilt. We got our bushing in there. We got our new bushings in here. The last thing to do is you'll notice the factory locked these in. So what I like to do is just take and put a little tack weld on each pin so they can't come out. And then the next time when they have to be rebuilt, all you have to do is just grind that little tack off. And you're right back to where you started.